If you're planning on starting a business, hiring is going to be something you're going to have to do, whether you're just starting or whether you've got a 6, 7, 8-figure business going right now. All right, and here, let's start down with the practical, right? We've talked about in the last podcast, panic-based hiring versus planning-based hiring. Really important to have a plan. Now, I tell people all the time, as a business owner, we sense when we need somebody, and then that sense grows into more, it's stronger, right? The more panic we get closer to, right? So you've got the panic. Let's say panic is like the sun, and you've got stuff being sucked into its gravity field. If we're way out here, we know that we might need somebody, but yet we don't act. Some people do act, but most people don't. And then we get kind of sucked in a little bit closer, and this is the big panic ball right over here, and that it's sucking us in because we know we're losing more and more control of our business because we ignored that little urging way back about hiring. So now we need to jump in. The first thing I'm going to beg you to do is stop that. Anytime you feel like you might need to hire somebody, you need to stop right then and do one thing. You need to sit down and put what I call the role scorecard together. Okay, and the scorecard comes from the Who Method for Hiring. It's a system taught by Jeff Smart. The scorecard basically talks about who this person is. Not just like what they're gonna do, but also what character attributes you might want them to have, what kind of personality you want them to have, what kind of social profile, maybe you want them to score a certain way on the DISC profile, whatever. And you're putting all of that into a scorecard. That will take some discipline, usually about an hour, 2 hours. I'm the type of person, and maybe you are too, I have to kind of start it, let it sit for a day, and then go back to it another day and just kind of finish it up because my brain just goes to work on things subconsciously, and some things maybe I didn't think of when I started that project or that scorecard for that role, I'll think about 2 or 3 days later. And just put those on a Google Sheet somewhere. In fact, you can just have all your roles on a Google Sheet somewhere, and it'll be easy to add things and subtract things as you need to do them. Once you have that scorecard set, now you can create the job description. And all the job description is basically your scorecard put into words. Now, if you're not good at this, that's fine. Just tell somebody on Fiverr or Upwork, or maybe you have someone that's good at writing, or you're an English teacher, somebody like that, tell them to take your scorecard and put it into a job description. Okay, once you have that job ad, you can post it out on the sites, the job sites. So you can put it on Monster or Indeed. You can use companies like WiseHire. WiseHire will kind of transmit it out to a bunch of different places. You could use Hire My Mom. You could use Facebook Jobs. And we find that most of our candidates come through Facebook Jobs and Indeed. And when you do this, you want to make sure, if you're going to put it on Facebook Jobs, make sure they follow the Indeed link so that everybody stays in one place. There's an employer dashboard in Indeed that works really well. It's easy to communicate with your candidates and schedule interviews and all that kind of stuff. Now, some of you out there and some of the people in our group use WiseHire. WiseHire is a software-based service. It's month to month. And it's great for when you need someone because it'll give you a DISC profile that comes with it. And sometimes that can be very helpful to get a profile on a person before you actually call them and interview them. So if you're looking for somebody in sales, you'd want somebody with a high social acumen versus someone who wants to go out and be a company owner or an entrepreneur, right? So you want to see kind of those skill sets. Okay, once you have that squared away, the most important thing with jobs and candidates is to be fast. So when I go in once a day, and when I say fast, I go in once a day, maybe twice a day, and I look. So right now we're hiring for 2 positions. We're hiring for a lead intake coordinator, lead nurturer, and then we're also hiring for an office manager. So once a day I go in, there's usually 15, 20 applicants a day. And we do a sponsored ad, and Indeed, that's $15 or $20 a day, whatever we decide to do there. And we'll have, anywhere between 10 to 20 candidates. And so then I select all the candidates. It takes me about 2 minutes to do this. Select all the candidates and send them some sort of welcome email. Thank you for your interest in the position. And you can set up templates inside of Indeed. It makes it super easy. Something like this. Thank you for your interest in the position. Due to the volume of candidates that we have, we can't review resumes unless you fill out this survey. And that survey could be a DISC profile. It could be some sort of other hiring software or profiling software that you use. But anyway, that's kind of what we send. We send some sort of welcome email that looks like that. That self-filters. So if you have 80 applicants and you set up the system the way I just described, if they don't do the disc profile or they don't respond back asking questions or anything else, they're out. I don't need to respond any further. I'm looking to self-filter a lot of the job applicants that come in. So we have 80 applicants come in. You can imagine in this time of stimulus and pandemic and all this other stuff, you got lots of people just kind of robo-applying for positions. I want the ones that are there, that are interested in the job, so they're actually going to take a little bit of extra effort, and everybody else I just let go. One other real quick filter that you can do is in Indeed, you can ask questions. And so one of the questions I like to ask is, what is it that you bring to the table or your superpower that you feel like you do better than anyone else as it relates to this position? And then if they answer the question, you kind of keep them in your bucket, right? If they don't answer the question, you let them go. I mean, if you want somebody detail-oriented and they missed a question on your interview process, are they really that detail-oriented? Or do you just want to keep the people that actually took the time to answer it? I feel like that self-filters people out as well. And your game plan, again, to save time as a company owner, because I know you have lots of balls in the air, lots of things going on, is you want to make sure that you save yourself time. And that's how we do it. We use templates in Indeed. We use self-filtering by asking, one or two basic questions. And then once we kind of filter those things down, then we start the screening interview process. Now that screening interview process, it's easiest if you just time block one day a week. Maybe it's a Friday between 8 and noon or 9 and 12, 9 and 11, whatever it happens to be. And then you start the screening interview. And the screening interview, based on the Who method for hiring by Jeff Smart, is 4 simple questions. What are your future career goals? That's number 1. What are your superpowers? I call them superpowers. Jeff Smart calls it something else. But I like to say, what is your occupational superpower? What is it that you do better than anyone else? And then my third question that I ask is, what's your kryptonite? What are the things that you're just not interested in doing or getting around in your role? And I always kind of invite them in that process by saying, look, each of our jobs is a part of our life, right? They're like chapters in a book. Some of the chapters in the book are really, really good. Some of them are not. Like in our company, we want people to focus on their superpower. What is it that you think is not your superpower, or the things that you're just genuinely not interested in? And those questions come back in varied degrees, right? Some of them might be, well, I don't like office politics. I don't like to go into the office. I like to work virtually. I don't like sit in long meetings that aren't valuable, right? You'll get all those kinds of things. And once in a while, if you ask a good follow-up question, you can say, well, tell me more about that. What is it about meetings that drive you crazy? Well, in my old company, blah, 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 right? So you always ask a follow-up question in case you want to get more curious about something on a screening interview. Screening interviews should take 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, right? No more than 20. If they go more than 20, then cut it off and schedule a second interview for those people. And then the last question, the fourth question is, and you really need to ask this one. If I were to call your last 5 bosses, 4 bosses, 3 bosses, whatever you see on the resume, what would they say about you? What would they rate you on a scale of 1 to 10, and why? Now, this is a big one because the biggest red flag that filters people out is to say, well, I really don't want you calling my previous bosses. If you don't want me calling your previous boss, then you're out. Right? I completely dismissed that candidate. And the cool thing is I only wasted 10 or 15 minutes. I didn't waste a ton of time. And then just ask curiosity questions around that, okay? And a lot of times it's a red flag. I'm just going to be honest with you. Don't make it work. Don't make them fit into a box. If they don't want you calling their previous employer, it usually has something to do with them and the employer. And if it has something to do with them as the candidate, then you probably just want to pass on them. Look, I think the best candidates are the ones, maybe they didn't get along with their past boss, but they're going to come out and say, yeah, you can call anybody you want to. I did some things really well over there, but I just want to warn you, we didn't get along very well. And here's why we didn't get along very well. If they're being that forthright with you in the screening interview, well then, in my opinion, that's not a red flag, right? All of us have personality issues with other people. That actually is a sign of transparency and openness and willingness to be honest and vulnerable. Right? Those are characteristics that we like in our company. So just watch out for that. Now, once you get through those screening interviews, and you certainly can have somebody else in your company do them. I do all of our own screening interviews. I really like doing them. I want to make sure I'm getting the right hire, not somebody else is getting me the right hire. For right now, I do them. Our COO does them. He's hiring for a position and I'm hiring for a different position. So there are some people in your company that you can trust to kind of run people through these screening interviews. Then finally, once you're done, you set up a final interview. And the final interview basically is going through all of their occupational job history. Again, I've talked about this method in the past. And we train it, we teach it inside of seven-figure flipping all the time. And this method is designed to get you to the right hire 90, 95, 98% of the time, depending on how far you take it. If you take it all the way out, you should be able to get people to a 98, 99%. Again, I've hired so poorly in the past that's cost our company hundreds of thousands of dollars, me making a mistake on hiring, that I really feel like that is a superpower that I absolutely have to develop. It's not an option for a business owner not to develop good hiring strategies. It's not okay to go find commonalities with people and think because they like golf and you like golf that they're going to make a good employee. Has nothing to do with that. And don't get too friendly. Don't get too involved. Don't ask them questions about anything to try to find common ground between you and them, because the only common ground you need right now is you need this position filled. That's the only thing. And do they have the talent and the skills necessary to fill the position? So if you're out there just kind of freewheeling it, most of the time, I'm not going to say all the time because you're going to get lucky. Most of the time, you're going to make a mistake. And I can almost guarantee this. You're never going to find the perfect hire if you freewheel it like that. Okay, so this interview, this 60 to 90 minute interview needs to be basically going through their occupational history. So the way we started out in our company is I basically say, you know, look, Mrs. Smith, thank you for being with us. Susan, may I call you Susan? Yes, no problem. Susan, thank you so much for taking this time. It's going to be about 60 to 90 minutes, as I said in our email. And we're just going to walk back through your occupational history. And we feel like that everything in your life is a chapter in a book. And so we're going to walk past your past jobs out like a chapter in the book. And we want you to tell us because we want to get to know you. And we also want to get to know your job experience because it allows us to really understand you and what tools and superpowers that you bring to the table for us. And then we also want you to get to know a little bit about us at the very end and ask any question that you want. How does that sound, Susan? Susan's always going to buy in and say, that's great. Once you have their buy-in, who are your influences growing up in that time? So when you were in middle school, high school, who were your influences growing up? And they'll start talking about teachers, or maybe it's their parents or whatever. What was it about your parents that made you say that this many years later? Well, my dad, he was a hard worker and he taught me the value of being accountable. What were you known for in high school or when you were growing up? Like, what are some things that you were really passionate about when you were growing up? So they might give you an example and then you're just going to be curious, right? Oh gosh, that sounds really cool. Can you tell me more about that? Like, why was that big for you? Right? So let's say they won the state track and field meet 3 years in a row. You could go back with a comment that says, oh gosh, it sounds like you really like to compete. Oh, I love to compete. Why track like versus something else? Well, I tried cross country. I didn't really like running long distances and my event was this event. What did you love about that event, right? You get them talking about themselves. Listen, if you figure out that they've been successful from the time they've been 12, 13 years old up until the time they graduated from college, if you find out that they've been that successful, they're going to be successful in your company, more than likely. That's how we're training the seven-figure flipping members to achieve and hire well. What can we do for you? Maybe you have a need. Maybe you're like just kind of experiencing this real estate investing thing. It's been a journey you've wanted to go on for a while and just haven't taken a step. Why don't you buy a Flip Hacking Live ticket? It's going to be in Orlando, and you might be able to sandwich a Disney trip around it and write the whole trip off, maybe. I don't know. Ask your CPA. I'm not a CPA. Or if you're in a hurry and you've got a growing real estate company, you like what you've heard on this podcast and all the others, what's holding you back? why don't you reach out to us? Go over to sevenfigurealtitude.com and just kind of fill out a form, and we'll give you a call. No obligation, no rush. Just get to know us a little bit better. Let us get to know you a little bit better and see if our organization might be a good fit for you. We've got lots of products and things that we can help you along the way. Or if you're interested in being in part of our community, love to talk to you about that too. Well, it's been an honor hosting you here and being a guest host for Bill. Our next podcast, you don't want to miss it. It's going to be a panel of people who were in Cancun at the mastermind who said hiring was a struggle and who have jumped in with both feet and are hiring now. We're going to do a roundtable discussion. I can't wait to see you on the next one. Have a great day and talk to you soon.